But I do want to go to the other side of the world now and get the latest in the Israel versus Hamas war. And I'm going to head to Jerusalem in just a second and discuss what's seemingly a promising development over Gaza in just a moment. Israel's cabinet has voted to accept a 4-day ceasefire deal with Hamas. Now, 53 Israeli women and children held hostage by this terrorist group will be released gradually in exchange for 150 Palestinian women, teenagers who are held prisoner by Israel. Now, Gerald Steinberg is Professor of Politics at Bar-llan University. He joins me again from Israel. Good to talk to you again, Professor. Tell us, is this a fair swap when you've got innocent hostages taken in a bloodthirsty terror attack for people who presumably have been arrested over alleged crimes?
Nobody's using the term fair at all. It's the only option we have to get at least 50 of our people back, mainly women and children, or particularly women and children. It's been 45, I think 46 days since they were kidnapped. Many of them went through terrible trauma watching the brutal killing and torture of their parents, their loved ones, and they've been held in some tunnel somewhere by Hamas for now over 6 weeks. So I think the Israeli public wants them back, but nobody thinks of it as fair at all. This is it's pure blackmail, terrorist blackmail, and of course, it's worked again. And so we have to worry that they're going to try again and again, and it's going to come in other places around the world. So there's a lot to be done afterwards to make sure that Hamas gets punished and those people are being freed. They are people with blood on their hands that were involved in terrorism, even though they're young, and I think that most of them are under 18.
Yeah, it's sickening to have to deal with this sort of negotiation and to do a swap like this. But as you say, it's understandable. Israel wants to do anything it can to get those hostages back safely. So what then of this addendum to the deal, if you like, where if they release another 10 hostages, the truce will be extended an extra day indefinitely. If that holds, under my reckoning, within a fortnight or 3 weeks, you could get all the hostages back. What chance that will happen?
Well, the deal is that for 4 days, maybe 5, that there will be what's called the humanitarian pause. It's not even called a ceasefire. Humanitarian pause that will, and each day, as you said, 10 will be released. But after 5 days, that agreement is finished. There'll have to be a new agreement. Now, I think you're right. I think you're going to see Hamas and its worldwide supporters say, okay, let's just continue it. It would be tremendously difficult for the Israeli public and for the Israeli military to agree to that. We're committed to demilitarizing Gaza so that it won't happen again. And that means that southern Gaza has to be demilitarized. All those terror tunnels, all those rockets which are still being fired at Israel, all those terrorists and terrorist leaders that are holed up in Gaza, they have to be rooted out. So that's why Israel said with great difficulty, okay, we'll pause for 4 or 5 days. We'll allow a lot of humanitarian aid in, and we'll see if Hamas is able to put its hands on it. We'll see that live. But if at the end of those 5 days, Israel's under no commitment to continue, and yeah, we're going to be very much, there'll be psychological torture. They'll say, well, if you don't attack us, then we'll let another 10 go. I don't think Israel's going to agree to that. I think Israel's absolutely committed to destroying the structure.
It is so terrible. Of course, in any rational world, there should be no negotiations until Hamas instantly releases all hostages. But that's not the real world that you're dealing in, as you've explained. I just wondered, Gerald, whether you can tell me about, when you look back at history, Hamas has repeatedly broken ceasefires. Do you expect that it could hold for 4 or 5 days, or that Hamas would be tempted to break even this ceasefire?
Well, we do have some very terrible incidents that happened in previous ceasefires. I think the most notable one was in 2014. So we're talking about 9 years ago. And an Israeli soldier, during a ceasefire, was killed. His body was dragged away. And his body has been held, torturing his parents for 9 years because Hamas wants to use his body as leverage to get more terrorists released. So we may see events like that. I would hope, and I think that everybody in the Israeli military that's in Gaza knows that's how they act, and they'll be much more careful not to allow themselves to be attacked and be very quick to have a massive response if in fact Hamas breaks the ceasefire. So we're going to have to see how this develops, but everybody's certainly very much in a state of tension to see where this goes.
Look, it will be so good for Israel when they see hostages come back alive and well, but of course, heartbreaking at the same time, thinking about the hostages who remain. Thanks so much, Gerald. Sorry? What?
I'm going to add one point about the United Nations, because I heard your previous discussion. The United Nations is a complete and total disaster in this area. They have a lot of their humanitarian aid. They're putting in billions. There's all sorts of groups, which I won't go through. They knew what was going on. It's been stolen and used to build these tunnels. There's kilometers upon kilometers of concrete lined terror tunnels, and all 30,000 rockets, 10,000 been fired at Israelis since October 7th. The United Nations has absolutely no credibility here. And I think that when this is over,
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. We've had their representative in Australia recently talking about how Israel should have adopted a law and order, a police response to this, which is just so ignorant and ridiculous.